Beavers have been getting a lot of attention recently. Maybe it's their ability to walk with carrots or their cute squeaks. Beavers were extinct in the UK for 400 years, hunted to extinction for their pelts. But now reintroductions have been controversial. Beavers have been raiding turnips. The Beaver Trust has sent me to Scotland to learn about bringing back the beaver and why rewilding is so important. Join me to learn why we should let go of some control and let beavers take over. After a 6-hour train from London, I arrived to Edinburgh, where I met the beaver team. Our first stop on the beaver tour was the Seven Sisters Zoo, where a family of outcast beavers have been captured due to the landowner not wanting them. So just behind me is the pen where there is a family of beavers, and we saw the female. She's absolutely massive. She's 31 kilograms, and apparently the females are really territorial. The cool thing about these beavers is they're actually going to be released in London. So near me there will be beavers. These beavers were on land where the owner didn't want them. The Beaver Trust has found this family a new home, and soon they will be moved.
So this is a kit and this is an adult, and you can sort of see the size difference. You can see the big hind paws for all their swimming, their webbed feet. You can see a sort of second nail there, which is their grooming claw. So they use that to maintain these amazing pelts.
So we've just arrived to Agathi Farm, something like that. We've arrived to a farm where they've done a lot of rewilding, and in front of me there are 3 red kites flying around. There are beavers here and red squirrels. So let's see what we can find. This is Agathi Farm. It's a working livestock farm that has introduced many species, including red kites and red squirrels. The farm now hosts school trips and various wildlife tours. And they were actually the first private landowners that introduced beavers in Scotland. The beavers were captured elsewhere, taken to the zoo I visited in the morning, and released here.
What we've got in Agathi basically is a small patch of river further up. Mostly it's a series of ponds and streams.
The plants we've got at the moment probably won't be the same ones that we have here in a few years. There's been all this kind of dominant stuff, particularly with nettles, that's been here kind of unchallenged, but probably won't like getting its roots wet. A lot of this will die back, and then we'll end up with a huge variety of different plants. A lot of things that have probably been in the seed bank for centuries, kind of waiting for beavers to come back.
So we just came to the back of the beaver dam, and apparently beavers have been raiding Tom's turnips. Although the weather had turned, we waited to see if any of the beavers would make an appearance. My first ever wild beaver. So yesterday was our first day on our beaver tour, and we've been so busy I haven't had the time to vlog, so I thought I would quickly summarise yesterday and share what I've learnt. The first thing, and I think the main thing, is that reintroducing beavers is far more complex than I thought. Obviously, I have a lot of knowledge and experience about red squirrels in the UK, and unlike red squirrels, beavers were extinct. So there are all different other issues and things to consider when rewilding beavers to the UK. I think the main issue is that it's quite polarised with beavers. A lot of people really want them, and some people really don't want them. We met a farmer yesterday, Tom, and he is really excited for rewilding. He's eradicated grey squirrels from his farm, now he's got red squirrels, and he's also got beavers, and there are 6 beavers living on his land. And one thing I have learnt is that Beaver Trust really wants to normalise translocations. There are farmers or nature reserves who do want beavers on their land because there are so many benefits, there are disadvantages, they are going to cut down trees. We saw on Tom's land that his beavers have now started eating his turnips, so obviously for a farmer that's not going to be good, but Tom was pretty relaxed with it. Obviously there's the expected benefits, like they're going to reduce flooding. So obviously because they create dams and there's a larger body of water, the temperature of the water is more stable, and that's favourable for fish. If there's constant fluctuations in temperature of the water, that can be quite bad. Farmers can also use the water reservoirs to water their crops. There's also increased biodiversity around beaver dams because the area becomes quite waterlogged. Certain species can't survive, but that means other species of plants can. So there are more wildflowers and different species around beaver dams. I can hear the group is outside. They're probably waiting for me. So I'm going to quickly pack and we're going to go to our first location. Tom's beavers have only been on his farm for a few years. But what happens when beavers have been present for 2 decades?
And their lodge is at the back end of the loch. What you'll see is really fascinating. So basically what was a dry area, which had a lot of standing birch, they built a series of small dams and they have then flooded that area behind. It's a really fascinating example of what happens when beavers are here for over an extended period of time and how it naturalises.
The beaver has created an easy route for other wildlife like red squirrels, pine martens, so that they can easily cross rivers. I can so imagine a red squirrel crossing these trees. Something that's been mentioned multiple times is the speed at which beavers can make their dams. Within days they can dam a whole stream. Beavers are known as keystone species. This means they have an important role in defining an ecosystem. The wetlands not only help water flow, but they provide habitat for wetland species. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I've had my site with Squarespace for years now, and it's home to my shop where I sell my calendars. I particularly love the app. I find it so quick and easy. I can track orders, update my inventory, see analytics. If you'd like to host a website on Squarespace, head to squarespace.com/daniconnorwild and you can save 10% off a new purchase of a website or a domain. After a quick lunch, we were off to go rafting in the rain. The purpose of going rafting was to see a river where beavers live on a fast-flowing river. So there are no dams, but instead beavers bring dead wood into the river.
My arse absolutely soaking. Oh, have you got that on camera?
My waterproofs were completely soaked and I was so cold. We just got back from rafting and I'm so cold. I thought I'd do a quick summary of yesterday and what we learnt. So we were very much looking at how beavers are engineers and how they build their lodges and change river systems, looking at dams. Something I found very cool was that their lodge has multiple chambers. They will have chambers for resting, chambers for eating, and they also take their bedding into the water, clean it, and bring it back in, dry it, and then they bring it into their resting chamber, which is really cool. Then we went rafting, and we were very much looking at how in a large river beavers take down big trees, and they don't dam it necessarily. They might block some areas of the water, but they very much bring dead wood back into the river, which helps with some erosion. And also having these large dead trees in the water helps create areas for salmon to rest. So there'll be areas of slow water flow and then areas of fast water flow, and that's beneficial for lots of invertebrates and fish. Today we're going to look for wildcats at the Highland Park, and as usual I think they're waiting for me, so I should go.
We were on our way to the Highland Wildlife Park. Wildcats have been functionally extinct for centuries in Scotland. Saving wildcats is a breeding programme that is very carefully breeding wildcats and releasing them in Scotland.
Obviously we have an incredibly depleted ecosystem, and wildcats are pretty much a remnant from that.
I honestly felt very privileged to hear about the behind the scenes of this project. We went to the breeding centre where they have wildcats that will be released into the wild.
50 acres, 75 acres along the back of the park that we've never really used much. More for projects or species that we want to have more privacy, that we can shut off from the public a little bit, or for species that breeding or managing them away from people and disturbance is actually good for the purpose of whatever project that we have.
So behind me are captive wildcats, and these wildcats are just used for display, so these aren't part of the breeding program for releases. As someone who has spent so much time with wildlife, it can be a bit uncomfortable to see captive animals, but having these captive wildcats are so important in engaging the public, because otherwise people would never see them. But if people have never seen one and they don't know what they look like, they don't know how they behave, then why would they be interested in conserving them?
That afternoon we headed to Glen Feshie, an estate in the Cairngorms National Park that is working to regenerate and rewild the landscape. The Cairngorms don't have beavers yet, and they're unlikely to get there on their own. So there is a lot of work to get a beaver introduction approved in the national park.
This is my room for the night, and everything is wildlife themed, so it's perfect.
A new relationship with nature, if like a reimagining of our relationship with nature, and that's my job on a daily basis really, is promoting rewilding, is looking through the natural world through a different lens.
So Pete and his Highland cattle are working to drive the recovery and rewilding of Scotland, starting on the Glen Feshie estate.
So you can imagine when the Ice Age receded 10,000 years ago, it's basically just bare rock. On that rock you'd get lichens and mosses, then you get grasses and flowers, then you get scrub. In that scrub you get trees. And this is just a bit of a microcosm of vegetation succession. So this is blackthorn, but what it's actually now doing is protecting these trees that perhaps would otherwise get grazed by herbivores, but the herbivores don't want to come in the thorny scrub. The value of all those components, all the living creatures, beavers, fantastic species that they are just one component in that engine.
So we just got back from a walk with Pete Cairns, and it was pretty incredible to see how this landscape has basically started to rewild. we saw natural succession, and we went to a river, and it honestly reminded me of somewhere like Alaska. I could imagine bears there. There was so many dead trees. It just made me think I haven't really ever seen a river like that in the UK, and it's supposed to look like that. I think we're going to have dinner now and watch a film, maybe? We'll see.
It was our last morning on our beaver tour, and we went to meet Fred, a livestock farmer who is very excited for rewilding. He's brought beavers back and even great-crested newts.
Beaver learning.
Some research has been done on his land recently to see if beavers impacted fish, and the overall impact was positive. Beaver dams may prevent some fish from migrating upstream, but beavers provide a habitat that overall benefits fish. After a very cosy lunch, we said goodbye to the beaver team. That beaver trip was very interesting, and it definitely gave me a different perspective of rewilding and how important it is. And it actually made me feel a bit sad just to see how depleted our nature is in the UK. If I compare it to Sweden, where there are bears and lynx and beavers, they're so lucky to still have a lot of the predators. There aren't wolves, which is another big issue, and it's quite controversial. But I think with a lot of rewilding projects, it is really about changing the perspectives of certain individuals and just sharing a positive, realistic story of rewilding, because there is a lot of fake news or fake information. It was fascinating to join this trip. Big thank you to Beaver Trust and the European Nature Trust who funded the trip. A quick update on me. I have been in Mexico for several weeks. I've been really focusing on editing. I have 10 videos to edit, or 9 now. This one counts as one of them. This time of year is always busy because of the calendars. A big thank you to everyone who has ordered a calendar, and a massive thank you to my mum, who has actually been preparing all the orders and shipping them out. So thanks, Mum. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which should be about red squirrel conservation on small islands in the UK. So I'll see you then.